Shalom and welcome to the One Pasuk podcast, in which three rabbis from Englewood, New Jersey, each share an insight on one particular pasuk from the Parsha, and reflect on each other's ideas. Rabbinic banter, I like to call it. I am Rabbi Chaim Pupko of Congregation Ava Torah, and I'm joined by my dear friends and colleagues,
Rabbi Akiva Block, Kilat Kesher,
and Rabbi Daniel Goldberg, Eitz Chaim, the Englewood Stiebel.
To sponsor an episode of the One Pasuk podcast, visit onepasukpodcast.com and click on the sponsorship link. And please take a moment and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast platform.
Today's one pasuk from Parshas Korach is Perek Yuzayim, pasuk Chaf Gimel. After the rebellion of Korach is squashed, there continues to be dissension in the ranks, and God comes to Moshe and says, once and for all, we're going to prove that you and Aaron and the tribe of Levi are the chosen ones. Take one staff from each of the 12 tribes, place them in the Aron, and the following morning, the one whose staff flowers, it is that tribe that we will know is the chosen one. And the Torah explains, Vihehi mamachart, and it happened on the next day. Vayavo Moshe el ohel ha'adus. Moshe comes into the Mishkan. Ve'ine parach mateh Aaron lebeit Levi, and it is the staff of Aaron from the tribe of Levi that sprouts. Vayotze perach, it brought forth sprouts. Vitzץ, and it produced blossoms. Viigmel שקדים, and it bore almonds. This pasuk is so interesting, not just because of the method that is chosen by Hashem to indicate the chosenness of Aaron, but also the very detailed nature of the pasuk, the way it describes in such specificity how the staff of Aaron blossomed. And I'm wondering, rabbis, what lessons you drew from this particular pasuk. Take it away.
I feel like you, Rabbi Pupko, always go last, and I feel like this is a great opportunity for you to go first.
Okay, and I'm going to talk about going first.
Great.
So I love the word shkedim. I love it. It's such a great Hebrew word. And the reason for that is because the word in Hebrew, shaked, lishkod, means to take initiative, to go first, to do something with alacrity. And I once read, I don't remember where, that the shkedia tree, the almond tree, is called such because the almond tree blossoms early. It's one of the first trees to blossom when the trees blossom and bring forth its almond fruit.
Hashkedia porachat.
Hashkedia porachat, exactly. And so I love that connection, that idea that the word to take initiative is the same word as the shkedia tree, which is the one that blossoms first. Now, how do I connect this to Aharon? So I was thinking that it seems a little bit of an arbitrary sign when Hashem wants to show his favor towards something, like in the story in Yoshua with Achan, where everyone passes before the Aron. That makes sense, right? The Aron, like the Urim V'Tumim, like that makes sense. But almond blossoms, what does almond blossoms have anything to do with anything? And so perhaps it's reflective of what Hashem sees in the tribe of Levi in general. During Eta Egel, it was the tribe of Levi that stepped forward. They took the initiative. They answered the call. People who stepped forward from among others. Even the fact that Nadav and Avihu had committed a sin, but it was a sin that emerged out of this desire to take initiative and step forward. Pinchas, we're going to see later on, Pinchas is recognized for his act of zealousness. He's someone who took initiative. And so perhaps the reason why Hashem shows his validation of Beis Levi and of Aharon and the Kohanim as being leaders is the fact that part of their character, of their tribe, is taking initiative. We could also go all the way back to the original sons, right? Levi and Shimon were people who took initiative to avenge their sister's honor. That's the character of Levi. And so the obvious lesson is when it comes to leadership and accomplishment, so obviously initiative is important. Zrizin makdim in lemitzvos, that's something that's reflected in the way that we practice mitzvos, that we want people to have a sense of initiative. But I guess the deeper idea I want to bring out is that taking initiative isn't just showing enthusiasm or dedication. Oftentimes taking initiative is risky. And sometimes to be the first or to be the one who assumes responsibility means sticking your neck out. And that comes with, obviously, potential dangers. And taking initiative is an important value. It's something that not everyone can do. And I don't think we expect every single person to take initiative. We can't all be leaders, right? If we're all leaders, then who would they be following? It reminds me of a great story of Golda Meir and Nixon, about how Nixon says, listen, I'm a president of a country with so many million people, 200 million people. And Golda Meir says, try being prime minister of a country of 3 million prime ministers. But that's the idea. So I think, so the two lessons are, on the one hand, what it means to be a leader and the initiative and the risk, and the recognition that not everyone is meant to be a leader, and that's not the expectation. So anybody who's not a leader shouldn't feel like, oh, I'm less than. No. There are people who play different roles, and we need all of them.
Beautiful. There is such a heavy emphasis today, and the zeitgeist of like, you're a leader, everybody here is a leader, everyone's supposed to be a leader. And I think I once heard, and this is only anecdotal, but that people used to speak about citizenship. That was the goal of, let's say, higher education, was to create good citizens.
JFK would talk about that.
Yeah.
I think the ask not quote is in the context of that idea about being good citizens. And
yeah.
I also love I love the imagery of the almond representing alacrity. Reminds me of the first parak of Yirmiyahu, where Kadosh Baruch Hu comes to Yirmiyahu and says, Ma ata roeh, and he says, Makel shaked ani roeh. I see an almond branch. And Kadosh Baruch Hu says to Yirmiyahu, Hey tav toliros, you're seeing good. Ki shoked ani al dvari la'asoso, because I am shoked to fulfill what I plan to do. And different Mefarshim explain things in different ways, but Rashi on that pasuk cites the Medrash exactly as Rabbi Poko said, that the shkediyah, that the almond grows quickly and first, and that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying is like, you don't have any time.
Yeah.
Like the time has come.
I really wondered, is shoked, what comes first? You said that the tree is called this, or the plant, the tree gets this name because it has this quality, or does the quality derive from the tree? Meaning, do we say that shakad means fast or with alacrity because of the shkediyah?
I can see it either way, but I have to think right block, because years ago when I first came across this idea, it was in the context of that pasuk and that Rashi. And over the years, I completely forgot about the pasuk and the Rashi, but remembered the idea. So thanks for putting that all back together for me.
We can bring it back in a couple of weeks when we read this Haftorah on the first week of the 3 weeks.
Exactly.
I was also thinking that another reason why the shkediyah may have been the parach of choice is because it's the way to minimize, to the extent possible, the miracle. Meaning, God does miracles, but he does so in ways that at most, let's say, that can most readily be attributable to nature. Just like he has the ruach kadim azar, he has that strong wind before Kriyas Yamsuf. So anyone who has eyes to see and is somewhat cognizant will see that, of course, it's a miracle, but God will still create some sheen of nature at work to give some out for those who willingly want to not see the hand of God. And maybe the fact that God takes a fast blooming tree, so it's possible you could say that, sometimes a shkediyah can grow overnight, so maybe there were some seeds, and so by doing it that way, it shrouds it to the extent possible in Teva.
I like that.
Love that. The other thing I was going to say, Rabbi Popko, about your shkediyah imagery, which just occurred to me, is we want to look at the shkediyah as the template, if you will, for Aaron's leadership. If we think about it, if we reflect on the leadership of the Kohanim, their leadership from a innovation standpoint was thoroughly unspectacular. Their role was really to administer the avodah on the Beis Hamikdash, to be the spiritual leaders of the people, to approach life with a sense of rigor and discipline. And normally we think of leaders and innovators, or let me say it this way. Normally we think of leaders as innovators. Look at all the lists, 36 under 36 and the top 50 rabbis and all the lists that come out. The people on those lists are people who do new stuff, who are innovating, who are not just out ahead of everybody, but are ahead of everybody with creativity and ingenuity and innovation. And the initiative of Aaron HaKohen is thoroughly unspectacular. Aaron is just first to do what must be done. And sometimes we need to know that that's the leadership that we should turn to. It's not about the newest, shiniest thing. It's actually about the person who does what they're supposed to do with integrity and who models good behavior for everybody else in a way that we can all look up to.
It's very, very beautiful. As I was thinking about this scene, another scene comes to mind, another scene where a shevet, where a staff is being used to demonstrate who is chosen, who is right, who is wrong. And that is, of course, in the confrontation with the Chartumei Mitzrayim, with Paro and his magicians, where the staff turns into a tanin, let's call that a snake, and it consumes the other staffs. So one way to prove your rightness, we could have found that Aaron's staff consumed all the other Shvatim's staffs. And then we would know the one that has Aaron's name on it would be that's the right one. But I would call that something like a zero-sum game. It's that we can all live together and we can coexist in a beautiful harmony. But one of us can be just a little bit elevated. And not just that, but the one that's a little elevated is going to produce flowers and fruits, which provides, meaning it's not just zero-sum, but it's actually it's zenena v'zenena. Everybody wins in this instance. And I just think I think there's more to say here. But
a rising tide.
That's right. A rising tide that can lift all boats. Yeah. I think it's an entry point into this moment to think about how it differs from that Egyptian staff moment.
It actually reminds me of something I spoke about one year, because a couple of psukim before, it says that Moshe placed Aharon's staff besoch matosam, right? Specifically among their staffs. And I think I saw something. There are certain trees that, or maybe this is fruit trees in general, they grow better when they're among other trees. Like you have a tree alone, it'll produce a certain amount of fruit. But if you have a grove of trees, the proximity of other trees enhances the growth. And so I remember saying that year that Aharon's staff blossomed not strictly because Aharon was chosen, but because Aharon saw himself as among the people. And that was his personality. And it was because of the other staffs, partly because of the other staffs, that his staff blossomed, because it was in proximity. It was beso.
Very nice.
So I wanted to share something else about, in addition to the other reflections on almonds that we've been sharing together, I saw a beautiful story that relates to this pasuk that I really think is so illustrative and informative to today's day and age. The story is about Rabbi Shlomo Zalman HaKohen Kook, the father of Rav Kook, who learned in the Volozhin Yeshiva, and he was sent out by the rabbis. He was a shlucha de Rabbanan. He was sent out across Europe to raise funds for various Torah institutions. And he got to one community where there was a big machlokas going on in the community about a whole host of issues. And the community got wind of the fact that he was a great Torah scholar. And so they asked him to please solve the machlokas. So he gets up in front of the room and he refers to this pasuk. And he says that almonds, we know from the first perek of the Mishnayos in Maseches Masros, which discuss all of the different types of produce and when, at what stage of development they're obligated in Meiser. So the Mishnah explains that there are two types of almonds. There are sweet almonds and bitter almonds. And if you look at the Bartanura, the commentary of the Bartanura there, he explains that the sweet almonds actually start out bitter and end up sweet. And the bitter almonds start out sweet and end up bitter. And they're actually, these two types of almonds are chayav and maisros at different times. That's what the Mishnah says. And so Rav Kook's father said, these two types of almonds really represent shalom and machlokas. If you think about machlokas starts out really sweet. There's a thrill of the fight. And there's a certain rush that you get with debate and discord, and we love it. We run after the discord. It's just people who chase debate all the time just because of how euphoric it almost feels. And that's
like a competitive drive.
And that sweetness ultimately dissipates into complete and total bitterness.
Competitive drive, also righteous indignation, and
you can't ever, right, exactly. And shalom, vitur, being a little bit more forgiving, is the exact opposite. It really hurts to compromise. It really hurts to make shalom. You're a person of principle. You're standing up for what's right. And almonds, that other type of almond represents shalom, to be able to make peace, even though initially it's actually bitter and difficult and painstaking. Ultimately, at the end of the day, there's a certain sweetness that pervades a society that is able to forgive one another and relinquish and be a little bit more understanding and compromising with one another. There's a certain sweetness that ultimately emanates from that. And that's really the time in which we find ourselves. We're like that. Which kind of almonds are we going to eat as a broader Jewish society? There's so much discord. There's so much divide in Am Yisrael. And whether it's on social media or it's in other public forums that exist, the thrill of the fight is very much rampant. People love to debate. People love to scream and yell at one another. We're almost shouting into the wind and not as much to one another. We don't speak to one another as often as we do. But even when we do, the biting and discordant nature of our discourse is very alarming. And there will come a time when we recognize how harmful and how dangerous and how bitter these fights actually are. And we need to grab the other kind of almonds, the kind of almonds that actually are difficult and maybe a little bit bitter at first, but hopefully pays great dividends and bears really sweet and beautiful fruit at the end, where we're able to actually live together in harmony despite the initial bitterness.
That's fantastic.
All right,
All right,
everyone.